Welcome to Season 4 of Might in Motion, the podcast that champions motivation, momentum, mindfulness, and might. I'm Mariana Kinney, your host, bringing you conversations with inspiring leaders and innovators who challenge the status quo and push boundaries in their careers and lives. Whether you're here to grow, lead, or ignite your own journey, we're here to keep you moving forward. Let's dive in. Today, I welcome Jessica Wright, Life and Career Development Coach. She is an ACC-credited development coach and helps new and emerging leaders build confidence, lead with purpose, and create a lasting legacy without sacrificing their personal lives. With a master's in transformational leadership, Jessica helps leaders navigate the pressures of their roles, overcome burnout, and empowers them to redefine success on their own terms. She also speaks on topics such as self-awareness and sabotage, overcoming leadership loneliness, and using failure as a growth tool. Jessica is also the host of Illustrating Leadership podcast and has been featured in Authority magazine for her insights on leadership and development resilience. When she's not coaching and podcasting, you can find Jessica drinking a cup of coffee or trying to avert her dash out from whatever naughty endeavor he's taken on for the moment. Oh, Jessica, I love that. They are very naughty, these little dachshund dogs, right?
We were just talking about that. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, what I love about your intro is there's this little hint of saboteurs. And I want to start with that because it's not a topic that many people actually talk about. And so I'm really curious on what does that mean in like leadership space and how can that have an impact on our careers?
Definitely. A saboteur is the voice or choir of voices, as is most common, in our head that holds us back, that makes us respond in a default way when maybe the default isn't the most creative, innovative, adaptive, kind, empathetic, et cetera, way to respond.
Mm-hmm.
A saboteur develops in childhood as much of this kind of stuff does.
Yep.
And it's a fear-based response. And it's also the shadow side to a gift of yours. And so the good news is, one more piece of bad news. One more piece of bad news is that we never get rid of our saboteurs. The good news is we can learn to catch them before they hijack us and keep us from showing up the way we want to show up in our businesses, in our organizations, in our families, in our community efforts, whatever kind of leadership or, situation you got going on. We can learn to catch it before it hijacks us and turn it back to that gift side and respond and operate in a more innovative, kind, creative way.
Yeah, that's deep. I want to kind of pull on a thread where you talk about it's a shadow of our gifts. Because I love visuals, right? So like that's just a very visual thing that hit me of, wow, you can't, because it's tied to a gift, then you should be able to actually lean into your gift.
Yeah, definitely. It complements strengths, the Clifton strengths very well. I've had some conversations with some strengths experts and it fits really well with that. And I love the strengths stuff. And I'll give you an example. So one of my top saboteurs is hypervigilance. That comes from some childhood traumas and needing to always, or feeling like I needed to be ready for bad news at any point. And Fast forward, now I'm a military spouse. It hasn't gotten any better, you know, like kind of always ready. So I tend to have full-blown conversations in my head about all the things that could happen in any situation before there's been any whisper of any of that happening. And I have 3 to 5 plans for each of those things that could happen. And I'm ready. I'm the person you want in a crisis because I've already probably thought about how I'm going to respond. A week later, I'm going to break down and, you know, have to go visit my therapist. But in the moment, I'm super great. I'm also very organized. I'm great at making plans. I'm great at executing plans. And that's my gift. But when all of my brain space is taken up by everything that could go wrong, I don't have a lot of energy for actually making something good happen, you know? And so that's an example of how that plays out in my life. And so now, knowing that, when I start to find myself sitting on the couch thinking of all the bad things that could happen, I've developed my mental fitness muscle enough to be like, oh, hold up, stop. That's hypervigilance. What am I afraid of right now? What is this fear-based response coming from? What do I actually have control over? And then I can start to shift it to the sage side. So that's an example of it playing out in my life.
Wow. I feel like I'm talking to myself. On so many levels, like, because I understand that getting into that space. And I love how you talk about, you know, well, be aware of it, basically name it, identify that source, control what you can control, and then shift to into what you can control. That is awesome. You know, there's this belief that new leaders, we have a lot of new leaders that love to listen to this podcast, that you must always learn the hard way. You have to like go through the school of hard knocks. It's your turn, you know, to try to figure it out. What is kind of a misconception around that you help clients unlearn?
Yes, you are speaking my language right now. I think that that's really something that is kind of an old school traditional leadership, that thought that, you know, you must learn in trial. I don't know. What is the phrase? Forged by fire, forged in the fire. That's what I'm looking for. That's you have to go through hard times and prove yourself to be a good leader. And we don't see a lot of support for new and emerging leaders, because I think that idea is kind of still around. We feel like they need to prove that they're worthy of this role, that they can figure it out. And it's just, man, I want to swear. It's baloney. Like, why not come alongside someone and support them and give them a confidant and let them have room to fail and learn from their failure? Why not implement that kind of support? And that's honestly why I'm so passionate about doing what I do, because I don't see a lot of that happening. And I see new and emerging leaders who are so talented and so caring and want to make a difference and have the energy to make a difference and the time to create their legacy and, you know, make a difference in this world. And they get burnt out way too fast because they're not given the support they need to, you know, figure it all out, but do so in a much more supportive environment.
Yeah. What do you think that old school mindset has stuck around? Because I mean, like, I've been in the corporate America space for 25 years, and I saw it at the beginning, and I saw it, even now, right? Like, is it a fear of something?
That's an interesting question. I haven't really thought about why. I've just been angry that it's still around. So yeah, let's dig into this. I think most of those ideas are kind of fear-based. I think that sometimes we have a hard time making room for the newer folks. And so I wonder if there's, something to that. There's this idea of pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps and like making it through struggles that our society really puts a lot of value in that I'm not sure that we should. And maybe someone can just be fit for this because they have the skills and they're really good at it and they have potential. And we can come alongside them and help them put together what their legacy and their leadership is going to look like. And maybe we don't have to almost root for someone to fail in order to like celebrate their success, their eventual success more. Like that doesn't make sense to me. Why do we need them to be in pain for the eventual good result to be good? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. But I think like new leaders and those that are aware of this have this opportunity to break this. It's like a generational curse, right? And so like you have this opportunity, and sometimes it's that taking that path, you don't know what that ripple effect is of creating a better space for new leaders. So if you have been, let's say promoted from a manager to a manager of manager, so a senior manager, a director, that kind of level, you now have this opportunity to build within this group of managers beneath you a better path for future leaders that are going to come behind them.
Yeah.
But it has to start somewhere, right? Like,
definitely. Yeah. So. I think also we tend to, this might be the hypervigilance saboteur showing up in business, but maybe sometimes we assume the worst until proven otherwise, just so we can save ourselves some stress, some organizational failure, some, whatever. And what would it look like to assume the best and put some guardrails in? So, if we start to get off track a little bit, we can get back on course, and someone never really has to have this like rock bottom as a leader. And we can just, I'm not into toxic positivity, but I am also not against setting people up for success and creating a positive environment for people to function in. So I think that's an interesting thought.
Sometimes when you're dealing when you become a leader and as you move up within the organization, there's isolation that can happen, because now you might have been promoted above your peers, and these are the people that you collaborated with, and you had the opportunity to maybe complain about your boss, right? But now you moved up and they haven't. And how can that isolation impact a leader's confidence and performance? And are there any tips for new leaders that they can proactively combat that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like you used to go to happy hour with these people, and now you're like leading the meeting agenda, and it's like, ugh, this is so weird and awkward, and like maybe they don't like me now because I'm the boss, And so I think that all affects leaders' confidence, because you all of a sudden don't feel like kind of the undercurrent that you used to be tapped into. And you also, it can be an advantage because you've really seen your coworkers and their strengths. but you also now have to find a way to, when making a difficult decision or getting everyone on board to move in a certain direction, you really have to use that information wisely. And I think like there's definitely a social loss too of when something is difficult, not anymore, not being able anymore to like roll over to the next cubicle and be like, oh my God, like you can't do that when you're the leader. And so there's this like loss of confidant as well. And it can feel really lonely to be going through these difficulties if your organization hasn't put a support system in place for you. So, sorry, hold on one second. There's that angry dachshund. Yeah, it is. So yeah, I think it can feel really lonely for folks when they lose that just social component too, because that's how we tend to deal with difficult situations. We seek out our people, and when the structure of the organization takes our people away from us in some regards, that can be really, really isolating. So, I mean, step one is to put a support system in place for yourself, or help your organization see that they need to do that for you. I know I'm a little biased. I tend to be that person for a lot of leaders. Okay, I'll admit it. I want to be that for you, but like it doesn't have to be a coach specifically. It can look different ways for different people. And it's just really important for you and your organization to figure out what that looks like, because you need someone you can bounce ideas off of. You need someone that you can bring struggles to and talk through the options. You got to get it out of your head. Like the spiral just makes it feel even more lonely and like a bigger deal. So that's step one. I think step two is to really make sure that I hate the word balance, but that you're spending as much time making your personal life fulfilling and joyful as your professional life. And I think that if either of those get out of balance, if life's great, work sucks, or work's great, life sucks, it kind of starts to affect the other one then. Like you're not going to, it's all going to start to be terrible. And so finding that middle ground, again, I don't think balance is the right word. I'm not really.
I use integration. Like I love the concept of it, because you're never, you can't be 100% engaged in work and 100% engaged in personal at the same time. There's only 100%. Yeah. And so it's being able, to flex and adjust as needed. And that thought of having joy in your personal life to counteract, is really important. And I also, I agree with you. I think having people outside of your current work sphere is really important. I neglected for a really long time personally. And when I started seeking counsel, whatever you want to call it, outside of my current corporate, job, right, or company, it opened up my ideas to all these other things. Like I was like, oh man, my mind is now open. I'm seeing new opportunities at work. I'm getting different ways to approach people and market myself or sell ideas internally. And that was really profound. Sometimes though, I think we get so hooked on, it has to be somebody in my corporate office. And that's probably not, it's not always the best way to go.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I would say the other thing that can be so helpful in kind of keeping the loneliness at bay is curiosity, which may not be what you expected me to say, but why I think that's so important is that you have a different relationship with folks now. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And yet, when we show up with curiosity for our teammates and, the people that you used to complain with and go to happy hour with and whatever, get through the daily grind with, when you now can show up as often as possible and just be checking in, showing curiosity, all of a sudden you start to create this new relationship. And yes, it's different, but it doesn't have to be worse. It doesn't have to be bad even. Like, it can be this new, very healthy, positive working relationship where you are helping them foster a sense of belonging on your team. And I'm not going to say it's not going to be weird for a little bit when you first take that role and are in that situation, but keep showing up with curiosity and creativity, and it's going to be even better. Like, we can always find someone to sit at the bar and complain with, right? But like, to come into work every day and be really excited to be there. Okay, maybe not every day, most days, and be really excited to be there and get the mission done that you're there to do with a group of people who feel supported by you and support you.
It's huge. It's a game changer.
Love it. Yeah.
100%. You can build like that. It creates belonging. It creates that like the people on your team are being seen for who they are. And now all of a sudden you can create these groups of, like, I call them ride or die, right? Like, that you can always tap on them, and they're just gonna be like, they're gonna be there for you because you have a genuine interest in who they are and how you can help develop them.
Yep. I always talk about this in Illustrating Leadership podcast. The common theme of everyone who shared about the leaders that have influenced them is that whatever that leader did or however that leader showed up, they made that person feel good. Like, they made them feel like they belonged. They made them feel seen and heard. They made them feel part of the bigger thing, and like they were an important part of the bigger thing. And so you don't have to be an experienced leader to do that. New and emerging leaders have just as much skill, maybe even more ease doing that, because they haven't had the the traditional leadership like pelted at them yet too much. So like, don't be afraid to show up and be curious and creative.
That's awesome. I love that thought process. If somebody is tuning in today, and I think you talked about this in the article in Authority magazine, but on resilience. And I always envision like when I talk about resilience, I think of a rubber band, right? It can stretch and go back and stretch and go back, right? What a mindset shift that has helped you personally stay more resilient or become more resilient?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the saboteur awareness, and knowing that there are shadow sides to all of my gifts, and knowing that sometimes life is it's just going to bring those out, unfortunately. But I've really committed to ongoing personal and professional development and deepening my self-awareness, because that's not a one and done kind of thing. And so I continuously grow and change and get stronger. And I know that I can get through anything because I've been through a lot. And that is just a reminder that I can do it. I can figure it out, because I have invested and have a support team, and that is comprised of many different individuals. It takes a whole team to get this gal, out there into the world. but I'm very grateful for them, and they each have a role in making that happen too. I think resilience is an interesting topic because it's also very similar to what we were talking about earlier with like needing to be forged in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times resilience gets talked about that way. You're not resilient until you've like walked through the fire and made it to the other side, and then you can handle anything. I don't think that's it. You know, I think that building your toolbox and your support team and really understanding more and more about what makes you tick, what sets you off, and building skills to come back from that. Like you said, let that rubber band kind of come back in when you're stretched, is super important to actually being resilient. Because man, there are days when like I get to the end of the day and I'm just like, I got here and that was good enough. Like, you know, that's check.
Yeah.
And then there are other days where I'm firing on all cylinders and I also feel great. And, you know, guess what? I think I was resilient in each of those situations. So, yeah. I
love that. Now, as we kind of come to the end of our conversation here, and we've talked about saboteurs, you offer a saboteur assessment. I'm very curious, what kind of insights does it reveal, and how can leaders use that to have information to grow and improve?
Yeah. So I just want to take this second to give credit where credit's due. I did not come up with this assessment. This is the work of Shahzad Shamin. He wrote a book. He's got a whole PQ coaching program. I have been through that program twice. And I am now I am a PQ coach member. And so this is a tool that I am allowed to incorporate into my coaching. And I'm eventually working on becoming certified with, but just want that to be out there. I am not saying I created this. Okay. But it's been a really powerful tool for me to use both with myself and with clients. When you take the assessment, it only takes like 3 to 5 minutes. What it will do is give you, there are 10 saboteurs. One that is assumed that everyone has is the judge. The judge looks different for different people and manifests differently in different people. So we don't even talk about the judge on the saboteur assessment. You got it. Trust me. So then the other 9, you get a report of how those 9 are presenting right now for you in, your top ones are at the top and then they go down and you get kind of a percentage. So you could take this today and it might look one way, or it will look one way. And then in a few months, you could take it again and it might be slightly shifted. That was true for me. I had about a 2-year difference in between me taking it, and it definitely changed a little bit. The top ones stayed pretty close to the top, but they were just kind of in a different order. And so you'll kind of get that. You'll get a description of what those saboteurs are. And then once you take the saboteur assessment, I do offer a free 45-minute session to go over your results and dig into it a little deeper. Totally optional. But that's something we can do after you take the assessment if you want, and just kind of figure out how it's actually affecting your performance, your wellness, your relationships. It was so interesting. This last time I did the PQ coach program, I actually chose to focus on my number 4 saboteur because I could see how it was playing with the top 3 and making those stronger. And if you looked at my percentages, the top 3 all had the same percentage. And then number 4 was slightly under. And I was like, this stinker of a number 4 is getting these top 3 guys all riled up. And sure enough, I like working on that for 6 weeks. I was like, noticing that those top 3 were not as strong. So it's just really interesting. That's why I love doing the sessions after people take the assessment, because we can really get into like, okay, what does this actually mean for you, and how are these showing up, and like who's riling each other up? Who do we need to like put in a corner, you know? So yeah, you can tell I'm like rambling now because I love it so much. But yeah, that's one thing that I really love from the assessment.
That's awesome. And I know that people listening are like, they're probably like, oh man, I want to know what, my saboteurs are, or I want to get to know and connect with Jessica. What's the best way for people to connect with you? All of these will be in the show notes, but I always like guiding people to where the best route is.
Yeah, LinkedIn is the main place I hang out. It's really cool now, guys. I promise. We're really fun over on LinkedIn. Yeah, so that's a great place to hang out. Or you can check out my website, jessicawright.online, but take the Saboteur Assessment for sure. I think it'll be really helpful. And yeah, I'm just really excited to connect with everyone about this.
This was an awesome conversation, and I love scribbling down my notes throughout the golden nuggets that I've captured. And so, I just want to kind of highlight some of those. We talked a lot about the saboteurs, which is a voice or choir of voices in our head, and they can hold us back, and they can drive us to react in a way that maybe we don't want to react. They tend to be developed in childhood, and they're fear-based. They're also, though, the shadow of our gifts. And so there's an opportunity to be able to identify and then lean into the gifts to offset maybe some of the negative, right? And you talked through your own example of hypervigilance, but the key things I took away is that by identifying them, you've become aware. You're able to figure out what the fear source is step 2. You can figure out now what can you control. And that's like leaning into your gift. And then you shift more into your gift, which allows you to diminish, maybe not get rid of completely, but diminish the saboteur and increase your, the gifts that you're bringing to the table. We also talked about, how leadership isolation does exist. So you're not just imagining it if you're a new leader. And you want to make sure you do kind of 2 things. 1, set up your own support system. That could be internal to the company you're with, but it's always great to find other people outside of your organization to lean into. And number 2, make sure your personal life is joyful. It's got you want to kind of counteract, or at least like have some other part of your life that is going to help lift you up, because that's going to end up bringing up your work life as well. We talked about the old school mindset of the whole, you got to prove yourself, and you got to run through the fire, and you got to be forged in it. And instead, you do have an opportunity to actually come alongside those new leaders within your organization, offer them a helping hand, be that support system that maybe you didn't have. And that's actually going to help others rise to a level that you actually know they could be, instead of assuming the worst and then they end up lowering themselves, right, to the worst that you might be thinking. And you also talked a lot about staying curious about your team, and that helps create a sense of belongings. Great leaders make you feel seen, heard, and important. Those are 3 things you said. I was like, oh, that's so true, right? So I love these tidbits of information that you dropped today. I know that following you on LinkedIn has been so informative for me, and I highly encourage others to interact with you on LinkedIn and go out and take the quiz and lean in and learn, so that you can too, rise to the occasion and become a better leader. So thank you so much, Jessica. This was awesome.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to connect with you again and your listeners. And I'm glad that we're having these conversations about better leadership. It gives me hope for the world.
There is hope for the world. I agree. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Might in Motion. Remember, every step forward counts, and the power to create momentum starts with you. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It makes a huge difference. Until next time, stay inspired, stay mindful, and keep moving with might.